You have a general overview of what ORM is. It is now time for us to actually implement ORM in our project. There are different types of ORM library that can be used in a PHP MVC application. If you actually go to packages.org, right? So in the last lecture, I talked to you about the Doctrine ORM mapper and then also Propel. But if we come to packages and do a search for ORM, we can see lots of ORM libraries here. Okay, we have Fue ORM, Doctrine ORM, and then all these other ones. But the one that we want to use is actually called Illuminate. So we're going to say Illuminate Database. Illuminate Database. All right, so this is the one that we are going to be using, Illuminate Database. To install it, we are actually going to copy the composer require command. It's a very nice package that was created by Taylor Rothwell, the creator of Laravel framework. So we're going to be using this in our project. Come over to the command line and then paste it here to require it into our project. All right, so don't forget you need to be inside of the project folder. Okay, so Composer is updating all of the necessary package information. And now it's updating the dependencies. Right, so Composer is just going to install all of the requirements to use the Illuminate database. Right now it is installing Symfony Polyfill MB string, Symfony translation, and then it's installing Carbon. And now it is actually installing the Illuminate database. All right, so now it's generating the optimized autoloader files. Let's go over to the project. Right now in our composer.json, we can see Illuminate database 5.4. Okay, so if you check the vendors directory, there should be Illuminate. There's also Doctrine, and then we have Nesbot. So let me minimize this. So the next thing now is for us to actually instantiate the Illuminate database and then configure it to use the database that we created in a previous lecture. So come inside the app folder, classes. Now we are going to create a database class. It's going to call this database. Then the namespace should be app classes. All right, so click on OK. So we have our database class here. So the first thing that we need to do here is to actually import the Illuminate database capsule manager. So we're going to say use Illuminate database capsule manager as capsule. So we want to actually refer to Illuminate database capsule manager as capsule. So we can come inside of our database class and say public function underscore underscore construct. Right, so this is the constructor method that will be called anytime a new instance of the database class is created. So we don't need to actually manually call this function. This function will be called whenever a new instance of the database class is created. So instead of here, we are going to say db should be equal to new capsule. And then the next step is to actually add a connection. So we're going to say db add connection, and then we pass it an array. So inside of here, we need to actually specify our driver. We're going to get this from our env file. So we're going to say get env, and then what do we want to get? db underscore driver. Okay, so we need to be sure that we actually define this. Go back to our env file, db underscore driver. We set this to MySQL, right? So let's come back here. The next one will be host, right? So we need to create a new key here, host, and then this is going to be get env. This time it's going to be host. And then the next key that we need to create here is going to be the database itself, going to be database. Then this is going to be equal to get env. What's the value we use? db underscore name, right? And then the next one is going to be username for the database. It's going to be get env. Let's check out what's the value, db username. And then the next one will be the password. Now we're going to say get env. It's going to be db password. Okay, so we also need to specify the character set. So we're going to say char set. And for this, we're going to add code it to UTF-8. Then the next one is going to be collision. So we want to set the collision to UTF-8 underscore Unicode CI underscore CI. Alright, so if you are using prefixes for your table, you can also add the prefix key here. This is prefix. Okay, because I'm not using prefix, we'll set this to empty string. Okay, so we have the driver, host, database, username, password, charset, collation, and then prefix. The next thing that we need to do here is to actually make this capsule instance, which we name here DB, available globally through a static method. So if you refer to the documentation for this, you'll be doing something like this: DB set as global. So set as global. And then we need to also set the Eloquent ORM. For that, we're going to say DB boot Eloquent. Okay, so this is all we need to do for this class. After defining this, the next thing that we need to do is come over to Bootstrap, init, and then right here we are just going to instantiate our database class, instantiate database class. So we come here and say new database. Alright, so the simplest way for us to check if what we have done is working is to first of all just go to our site, acme.dev. Okay, so we can see here that we're not getting any error. So let's now try to actually just query the database for a data that doesn't exist, because right now we have not created anything in our database. Okay, so we're going to do this here, or we can do this in the index page. So let's come to public index, and then we are going to say user should be equal to capsule, right? In order to avoid this, let's just come back to our database class and grab this, then come back here. We just say use capsule. So now we can say user is equal to capsule, right? So after bringing this here, we can then refer to a method called table, and then here we can pass in the table name. This time is users, and then we can just say where id is equal to 1. Then we want to get the first record. So if there's actually a record, it will be here. But if there's no record, then this is going to be null. So what we can now do is to do a var_dump on user. Okay, so let's see if everything works as intended. See that we actually get null. But if we go over to our database again, and let's just quickly create one user, or whichever one will be fastest. Maybe we want to create a category. Okay, so let's create a category. Insert. Just say put any name, test, and then this should be test underscore slug. For this we can just put any date. Okay, so we're actually creating just one record. So say go, right? And then we can actually copy this to a new record, test2, test log2, and then go. Okay, so right now we have two records. So when we reload now, we still get null. Okay, so let's check why are we getting null, because right now we are actually looking at the categories table, not users. So we're going to change this to categories. Then let's reload the page again. So now we actually get that object. So you can see that we get the very first one. If I come back here and change this to get, so which means we are just going to get all the records. So remove the where clause, and then we're going to do a reload. Okay, so you can see that we are actually getting all of the items from the table as a collection. So what we can further do here is to cast this to an array. Okay, so we can say to array, so that we can actually view it as an array. Class array, 2 items, and then we have the 2 records that we actually created in the database. Alright, so that will be all for this lesson. We'll continue from here in the next